Sunset Boulevard. In 1950, Billy Wilder broke Hollywood convention with a narrator who was already dead. Sunset Boulevard opens on Joe Gillis, face down in a swimming pool, narrating his own demise. That haunting twist wasn't lifted from any novel, it was a cinematic invention, born from Wilder's original script, which first featured a morgue filled with talking corpses. Yes, that version was actually filmed. But when test audiences laughed at the wrong moments, Paramount panicked. Wilder revised the opening, ditching the morgue and keeping the voiceover, now paired with the eerie image of Gillis floating lifeless in chlorinated stillness. The dead narrator device survived, but just barely. Executives feared it was too strange, too macabre. Some even speculated that Wilder was mocking the studio system itself, a theory fueled by the film's brutal portrayal of washed-up stardom and industry rot. William Holden's dry, posthumous commentary gave the film its acidic tone, making viewers privy to every bitter thought. And when Norma Desmond finally descends the staircase in her delusion, believing news cameras are rolling, the moment lands with devastating clarity. Because Gillis already told the audience where it was headed. The twist wasn't just stylistic flair, it was a structural gamble that reshaped film noir. While earlier films had flirted with posthumous narration, none had placed it front and center like this. Today, echoes of that risk can be seen in everything from American Beauty to The Lovely Bones. The African Queen. In C.S. Forester's 1935 novel, The African Queen ends not with triumph, but with quiet uncertainty. After Charlie and Rose's mission fails and their boat sinks, the story simply stops. No rescue, no romance, just two survivors adrift. But when John Huston brought the tale to the screen in 1951, ambiguity didn't make the cut. Instead, the film's ending flipped the tone entirely. The couple survives, marries aboard a German gunboat, and is saved when their own torpedoes destroy the enemy vessel. This twist wasn't in the book. It was pure Hollywood invention. Film historians often point to this as a textbook example of post-war cinema's shift toward emotionally satisfying finales. While Huston and screenwriter James Agee led the rewrite, some legends tease that studio executives quietly favored a more hopeful resolution, banking on audiences still recovering from the war. The gamble worked. The African Queen became a critical and commercial success, with Humphrey Bogart earning his only Academy Award for the role. His portrayal of Charlie Allnut, gritty, humorous, and unexpectedly tender, departed from Forester's original, and the invented wedding scene gave the character a dimension that some critics at the time praised as refreshingly human. Today, the film's rewritten finale stands as one of classic Hollywood's boldest deviations from source material. A twist that didn't just change the story, but arguably helped define an era of cinematic storytelling. The Great Escape. In Paul Brickhill's 1950 account of the real-life escape from Stalag Luft 3, there's no trace of a motorcycle, let alone a high-speed chase. But in The Great Escape, released in 1963, the most iconic scene features Steve McQueen tearing across the countryside on a Triumph TR6 trophy, disguised as a German BMW, before launching into a 60-foot jump over barbed wire. That leap, performed entirely by stuntman Bud Ekins, wasn't just cinematic flair, it was pure invention. Director John Sturges reportedly told colleagues they needed something more cinematic to elevate the tension, a sentiment echoed by film historian Stephen J. Rubin. The real escape involved tunnels named Tom, Dick, and Harry, with most prisoners recaptured without drama. McQueen's character Hiltz, dubbed the Cooler King, was also fictional, created to showcase the actor's charisma and love for motorcycles. Legends even tease that McQueen wanted to chase himself in the final scene, playing both the American and the pursuing German rider. While the film took heavy liberties, those choices helped it rake in millions and redefine the war adventure genre. Critics still debate whether the chase glamorizes a grim chapter, but few deny its impact. As Rubin put it, the motorcycle chase is a perfect example of Hollywood myth-making. It never happened, but everyone remembers it. Double Indemnity. James M. Cain's 1943 novella, Double Indemnity, was a straightforward crime story, but Billy Wilder's 1944 film adaptation transformed it with a bold and narrative device. Walter Neff, wounded and unraveling, records his confession into a dictaphone. This framing, invented by Wilder and co-writer Raymond Chandler, turned the story into a suspenseful unraveling of guilt, letting the audience in on Neff's fate from the very first scene. Every flashback became a tense countdown to his downfall, a structure that not only heightened suspense, but also satisfied the Hays Code's demand for clear moral consequences. Unlike Kane's ambiguous ending, where Neff and Phyllis Dietrichson flee, only for her to leap overboard and Neff to face uncertain justice, the film ensures both characters meet their end, with Neff bleeding out in his office as his boss, Barton Keyes, discovers his confession. This narrative shift also deepened the character of Phyllis. While Kane's original painted her as relentlessly ruthless, the film's structure and Barbara Stanwyck's nuanced performance allowed for subtle hints of hesitation and possible remorse, making her one of noir's most enigmatic femme fatales. The dictaphone didn't just drive the plot. It introduced a new kind of noir anti-hero, one who is not only doomed, but fully self-aware of his fate. The real twist in Wilder's adaptation isn't just Neff's death, but his acceptance of it, turning Double Indemnity into a landmark of film noir, where the inevitability of guilt and consequence is laid bare from the start. The Bad Seed. In the 1956 film adaptation of The Bad Seed, the most infamous twist wasn't pulled from the pages of William March's original novel. It was created to appease Hollywood's moral watchdogs. The book ends with Rhoda, a manipulative child responsible for multiple deaths, surviving unscathed. But the movie? It delivers a bolt from the blue, literally. In a sudden, almost surreal finale, Rhoda is struck by lightning, a divine punishment that felt more biblical than psychological. The real culprit behind this twist? The same censorship standards that reshaped Double Indemnity. Under its strict rules, no villain, especially one as unsettling as a child killer, could escape justice. So, director Mervyn LeRoy, adapting Maxwell Anderson's stage version of the novel, leaned into cosmic retribution. Some film historians speculate that the lightning strike wasn't just about satisfying censors. It may have been a theatrical nod to the play's stylized tone. The studio even added a bizarre curtain call, where Nancy Kelly jokingly spanks Patty McCormack, breaking the fourth wall to diffuse the tension. Critics at the time were mixed, but the ending left a mark. Rumors suggest it helped inspire the punished child villain trope seen in later horror films like The Omen. Whether divine justice or narrative overkill, the twist remains one of the Golden Age's most controversial departures from its literary source. The Third Man. In Graham Greene's original novella, Harry Lime was a ghost from page 1, dead, buried, and never meant to return. But when The Third Man premiered in 1949, director Carol Reed flipped the script. Lime's sudden reappearance, stepping from the shadows with a smirk and no dialogue, became one of the most iconic reveals in post-war cinema. It wasn't in the book. Neither was the now famous Ferris wheel scene, where Lime delivers his chilling line about the value of human life. Would you really feel any pity if one of those dots stopped moving forever?
Would you really feel any pity if one of those dots stopped moving forever?
That speech, often credited to Orson Welles, has long sparked debate. Some claim Welles improvised it, though others suggest Green had a hand in shaping the moment. Legends persist that Welles' involvement was kept so under wraps that even co-star Joseph Cotten didn't know when he'd appear on set. Whether fact or carefully crafted myth, the secrecy added to the film's mystique. Then there's Anton Kara's eerie zither score, reportedly discovered by Reed in a Vienna bar, which gave the film its strange, unforgettable tone. Green himself later acknowledged that the film's ending, far more ambiguous and emotionally raw than his own, was Reed's invention. The twist didn't just rewrite the plot, it redefined the entire genre, turning a tidy crime story into a morally complex noir that still echoes today. Les Diaboliques. In 1955, Henri-Georges Clouzot released Les Diaboliques, a psychological thriller that blindsided audiences with a twist the original novel never dared to imagine. Adapted from the 1952 book, the film kept the core premise, a murder plot between a wife and mistress, but rewrote the ending entirely. While the novel resolved with a grounded, if grim, finale, Clouzot's film veered into eerie territory, teasing a ghostly resurrection. The supposedly dead husband returns in the final act, pale and soaked, as if risen from the grave. But the shocker? The supernatural angle was a red herring. It all unravels into a calculated conspiracy, a cinematic sleight of hand that still catches first-time viewers off guard. Rumor has it Alfred Hitchcock tried to buy the rights but was beaten by Clouzot by mere hours. Some even speculate that Hitchcock's frustration over losing the story inspired him to double down on misdirection in Psycho 5 years later. For the role of the emotionally fragile schoolteacher, Clouzot cast his wife, Vera Clouzot. Reports from the set suggest their off-screen relationship may have added an edge to her performance, with some crew members noting visible tension during filming. Clouzot doubled down on secrecy in the film's marketing, urging audiences not to spoil the ending, a tactic that turned the movie into a cultural guessing game. At a time when twist endings weren't yet common currency, the film made secrecy its superpower. Invasion of the Body Snatchers. In 1956, Invasion of the Body Snatchers hit theaters with a jarring twist that never appeared in Jack Finney's original novel. While the book ends with the alien invaders abandoning the Earth after encountering human resistance, the film's studio-altered finale adds a dramatic framing device. Dr. Miles Bennell, disheveled and panicked, pleads with authorities from a hospital room, shouting, "They're here already, you're next."
It's our children, everyone! They're here already! You're next!
That line, now etched into pop culture, wasn't part of the initial script. The original cut ended ambiguously, with Bennell screaming on the highway, uncertain if anyone would believe him. But Allied artists, reportedly nervous about the film's grim tone amid Cold War paranoia, insisted on a more hopeful resolution. Producer Walter Wanger and director Don Siegel reluctantly agreed, and screenwriter Daniel Menwaring penned the new scenes. Some insiders claim the studio feared the original ending would be too bleak for mass audiences already on edge from McCarthyism and atomic anxiety. Critics were divided. The New York Times praised the film's tension, while others dismissed the revised ending as a studio cop-out. Still, the final version reshaped the film's message, from existential dread to cautious optimism. Film historian Stuart Samuels later argued it captured the era's tug-of-war between conformity and the fight for individuality. Decades later, the altered ending remains a lightning rod for debate, and a reminder of how a few added lines can redefine an entire legacy. A Place in the Sun. In Theodore Dreiser's novel An American Tragedy, published in 1925, Clyde Griffiths faces execution without ever offering a clear confession. The ambiguity was intentional. Dreiser wanted readers to wrestle with the moral murkiness. But when George Stevens adapted the story in 1951's A Place in the Sun, that silence was shattered. In a scene created entirely for the film, George Eastman, played by Montgomery Clift, delivers a raw, emotional confession from death row. It wasn't in the book. According to film historians, Stevens believed audiences needed to witness a moment of reckoning, a glimpse of humanity before the end. Some reports suggest he pushed for the confession to soften the character's descent, giving viewers a reason to feel conflicted. Clift, known for his early use of method acting, delivered the monologue in a close-up that turned the scene into a masterclass in restrained agony. Elizabeth Taylor's tearful reaction, also invented for the film, added another layer of emotional gravity. Critics were divided. Some praised the added depth. Others argued it undermined Dreiser's critique of class and ambition. Still, the scene resonated. A Place in the Sun swept 6 Academy Awards, including Best Director. The death row confession didn't just alter the ending, it reshaped how Hollywood approached tragic characters. What's clear is that Stevens didn't just adapt a novel, he rewrote the emotional blueprint. Old Yeller. In Fred Gibson's 1956 novel Old Yeller, the story ends with a heartbreaking but clear moment. Travis the boy shoots his beloved dog after it contracts a deadly illness. The act is written plainly, though the emotional weight is subdued in comparison to what the 1957 Disney adaptation delivered. The film didn't change the outcome, but it did amplify its impact. On screen, the moment is drawn out, visually intense, and emotionally raw, with young actor Tommy Kirk delivering a performance that critics still reference as one of the most affecting in mid-century American cinema. What wasn't in the book was how far the film leaned into that emotional devastation. Disney's choice to depict the act in full, rather than fade away or soften the blow, sparked discussion even within the studio. Some speculated that Walt Disney himself insisted on keeping the scene intact to avoid sanitizing the story's moral weight. Others claimed he saw it as a defining moment for the audience as much as the character. While no official statement confirms those rumors, the decision clearly marked a departure from the more restrained tone of the novel. Film historian Leonard Maltin later described the scene as a cultural touchstone, echoed in everything from animated parodies to late-night comedy sketches. The twist wasn't in the storyline, it was in the delivery. And it turned a quiet literary farewell into one of the most unforgettable moments in Golden Age cinema. Planet of the Apes. In Pierre Boulier's original 1963 novel, The Planet of the Apes is, quite literally, another world. There's no buried Statue of Liberty, no last-minute twist revealing Earth as the setting all along. That now legendary ending was crafted specifically for the 1968 film adaptation. Rod Serling, best known as the mind behind The Twilight Zone, is widely credited with conceiving the twist. But the final screenplay, shaped by an uncredited rewrite from Michael Wilson, blurred the lines of authorship. Some film historians argue Wilson's contributions gave the ending its stark political edge. The twist wasn't just a surprise, it was a statement. Charlton Heston's character, George Taylor, collapsing at the sight of the ruined monument, delivers the haunting line, "You maniacs, you blew it up." Contrary to popular myth, that line wasn't improvised, it was scripted, and delivered with such force that it became one of the most quoted in cinema history. Critics didn't see it coming. While Renata Adler's review in the New York Times highlighted the film's bleak commentary on nuclear annihilation and humanity's self-destructive arc. The twist elevated Planet of the Apes from pulpy sci-fi to a cultural landmark. Every sequel, remake, and reboot has nodded to that moment, whether it was Tim Burton's 2001 version or the reboot trilogy that began in 2011. Some speculate the twist was so potent it eclipsed the rest of the film's message, turning a cautionary tale into a cinematic parable that helped redefine what a science fiction film could achieve. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.